Welcome to Online for Authors. Today I'm chatting with Penelope Holt, author of The Angel Scroll. Welcome, Penelope.
Thank you for inviting me.
I am so happy to have you. Loved the book, could not put it down. But before we really get into it, why don't you give us like the little elevator pitch? What are readers going to find when they open up the cover?
It is a romance, mystery, spiritual thriller. It's about a widowed woman in the depths of bereavement who has this mystical experience and goes on a scavenger hunt around Europe looking for 3 miraculous paintings. So I like to say it's the Da Vinci Code meets Eat, Pray, Love.
Isn't that fabulous? I love that is a really good the little line, the tagline that you need. Yeah. That is fantastic. So in my review, I said that it's like women's fiction, mystery, romance, mysticism. And I wanted to know what you called your genre. And you did pretty much exactly what I said there. Why this genre? What attracted you here? Or did you write and then do what I do, which is I've written a book and now I have to figure out where to put it?
No, I think I wrote, I'm a professional writer in business and I've done a lot of ghostwriting, but when it came to, I wrote a book that I really would want to read that kind of wove together the themes that fascinate me. So, we're all looking for the transcendent. We all want to believe in miracles. I mean, human beings they're plopped down into life. They don't know their story. They don't know where they came from. They don't know why they're here. They don't know where they're
going later, right?
Yeah. And I think when you lose someone, we all have death denial. It's what allows us to go about our business, not too afraid that a tree's going to fall on us or whatever. But I think when you lose people that you really, really love, it raises those questions like, will I see you again? Where did you go? Can I connect with you? And these are, whatever you want to think about mysticisms, these are human yearnings of the heart. And so I wanted to write, and I've done a lot, my parents didn't baptize me. And then I went to convent school and I was baptized at 13. And then when I was going through a lot of loss and dealing with depression, I got into Buddhist psychology, because Buddhism is more about mind training and like meditation and de-stressing, stuff like that. And so, just coming up through the whole explosion of New Age stuff. And I think people turning away from traditional religions, but yet they still have that God-sized hole in their heart. So I'm always very fascinated by how people, build their spiritual selves. So I wanted to write a book that was a roaring good. I love the Da Vinci Code. I love the way they zoomed around Europe and they brought in all of these fringe historical things. So I love the idea. I loved them going to different countries because then you can explore Rome and, but I wanted this heroine to kind of be in bereavement and kind of authoring a new life for herself through this adventure. So once I got cracking on it, and I love the research. I just there's so much research in the book, as you know.
Yes.
So it was like a self-indulgence. And then you get to, I got to the end of it and I was like, this is the book that I wanted to read. And then you just hope to goodness that other people want to read it too.
Well, I did. It was really good. And I love the fact that you said that research was an indulgence, because I use a hashtag called research junkie because I love research and I can dive down all these rabbit holes. And I love it when I find that fact, that piece of information that is going to propel my story in that direction that I wanted it to go. And it is like going on your own little treasure hunt and you're like, whoa, I found it. Now I know how I'm going to move this story forward. So talk to us a little bit about the research. How do you, what do you do? Do you rely solely on internet? Do you go places? Do you books, movies? How is it that you find what you're looking for?
Yeah, all of the above. So I grew up in England. I came to America after college. So it was really a hop, skip, and a jump when I was in college and, school to get over to Europe and just travel around Europe, go to Germany, go to France, go to Italy. So, and, England is a very ancient place. I went to the University of York, which it was the capital when the Romans invaded Julius Caesar in 55 BC. They fortified the town of York. So when you're in York, you're surrounded by these the Roman battlements. The Roman roads are underneath you under the concrete. And then then the Vikings came through. So they excavated, so you've got the Romans and then the Vikings. So, I was steeped in history and had the privilege of being able to see that firsthand. And then with the internet, it's just, if I wanted the hotel in Jerusalem, you can just put in the name of the hotel in Jerusalem and you can just see it.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that so? That's what I tell people.
Yeah.
Right. Because my first book is set in Ukraine, and I did not go to Ukraine, and it actually came out right before the current Ukrainian crisis, but there's no way to go now.
No.
And people will say, well, how did you know? And it's like, oh, the internet is so beautiful because you can not even see pictures, but sometimes depending on where you're looking, you can get in a little 3D thing. It'll take you around and you really can get a feel for things that we couldn't have done 20 years ago even.
Yeah. I mean, I think one great example of that, and a book that I love, I listened to it in Audible, and the narrator makes all the difference in the world. I fell in love with this narrator. I went looking for other books he'd narrated because he was just, and then I think with fiction, if you get a poor narrator, you just it's hard to handle. But, I'm sure Amor Towles' book, The Gentleman in Moscow.
Yes, absolutely. I loved that book.
And he said, I know he went to Moscow, but that particular hotel, he researched extensively on the internet and the photographs of it back during the revolution. And so I think that is a great example of how you can mix history. And some of the research I did is fringe, because I talked about the Da Vinci Code and the whole Da Vinci Code, this whole theory that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene. You get these fringe conspiracies, but there's actually a fringe theory that Jesus actually, in his hidden years between the age of 12 and when he began his ministry around 30, that he traveled to India because some people argue he was part of the Essene cult or group, which was influenced by Moses, who was influenced by the Egyptian mysteries and Hinduism. So we forget that all of the world's religions have sort of got fabrics and fibers and ties.
Pieces of, right. Because Christianity, it came up out of other
Abrahamic religions. And those Abrahamic religions, are steeped in Egyptian and Hinduism and Eastern. So that was a great ride. And because it's fiction, as you know, the beginning of the book starts with Claire dreaming about Jesus in India.
Right.
And then it explores this idea. And, it's been poo-pooed by a lot of, serious scholars, but it's also, there are some scholars that have claimed that they found evidence that Jesus did, in fact, travel to India. So I just thought, like the Da Vinci Code, it was fun to weave that kind of stuff in. And if people are intrigued by it, they can go running off. I'm not dogmatic about it. I'm not making claims. I'm just kind of weaving together.
Just kind of weaving in. And you actually leave everything open to possibility. Like nothing, when you're speaking of all these different things, they're all different people who are kind of letting Claire know their feelings about what she's experiencing, but they don't say, hey, I know all the answers. And Claire in the end kind of like comes up with her own determination as to what it all means, at least to her.
Yeah.
And I just think that's great.
And I think that was a big part of it, that we are bombarded with so many alternative perspectives, and how do you, especially when you're in crisis, how do you shape them into something that you believe? I mean, we used to, back before the interconnectedness of the globe, we used to live in our own little communities. We'd go to our church and talk to people who thought and acted like us.
Just like us, right?
Yeah. And now where Claire has got all of these different experts, so-called experts, everybody's convinced that they have the right answer. And she's looking, she wants to connect with her husband. She's looking for that. She's got that yearning. And so she's having sort of psychic experiences, which the research shows that people do have more so-called quote unquote psychic experiences when they're going through trauma or deep bereavement. Right. So it kind of brought me back to another element, which is, in philosophy, idealism is the idea that consciousness comes first and that everything emerges from consciousness. And that I like that idea because it sort of takes into account how different people have different experiences.
Right.
Exactly. And they're very highly subjective. You can't argue with them. I mean, I did a lot of research on near-death experiences, and because of the internet now, there are literally hundreds of accounts of near-death experience. And I would say that in the majority of these cases, you can't prove if they happened, but it seems obvious to me that the people who experience them are absolutely convinced that it happened to them. And they have some pretty strange data points about hearing conversations down the hall. And so, it's like I said, it's a mystery. We don't know where we came from. We don't know why we're here. We don't know where we're going. I mean, if you've got a fundamental and a devoted religious belief, you can answer those questions for yourself through faith. But, we're learning more about the universe. Physics is giving up its secrets. I mean, who knows what the final answer will be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the things. Let's go back to that grief. My husband had cancer. He was diagnosed with brain cancer in June of 22, and he passed away in January. So just recently. So as I'm reading this, I feel Claire's grief.
Yeah.
And you wrote it really well. You wrote it so well that several times I had to kind of like I really felt it. How did you pull that off? I'm not at a space right now where I could even begin to write grief because it's too raw for me. And I'm just curious, like you must have experienced grief at some point for you to have. Yeah.
My mother died of cancer when I was in my 30s and my kids were little. My dad died a year later. I lost my sister during the COVID. She had cancer. She was diagnosed late. She couldn't even see an oncologist. I think she was the first person to see the oncologist in 2022 in the UK. I'm from England. Yeah. And then I lost my closest brother-in-law a week after that. And then I just lost another brother-in-law. I lost my brother. So, and not all of that impacted the book. The loss of my sister did. She was my best friend, and she'd been my protector since we were kids. She was 8 years older, and so that was that was a deep loss for me. Different than losing a partner, but deep enough to push me into that grief. And Terry, you have to re-author your life.
Yeah.
You've got to, and I got up in the morning and I had a mantra because you get depressed, you start to become a little bit nihilistic. And I said, I want to live with gratitude, acceptance, optimism, and purpose. And I just kept, because I know those are the things that are the life force: gratitude, acceptance, optimism. So I just had them as a mantra. I just kept focusing on them like an incantation so they'd come back into my life. But you, if you don't focus yourself on a kind of a belief system that will help you to dig yourself out of that grief, it's very hard to spiral and stagnate.
Yeah, and that's something that I've been noticing. When he first passed away, I had a lot going on, and I kept myself extremely busy, and I seemed to be doing well, and everyone kept commenting how well. And then the busyness went away, and I have a therapist, which is great. And he and I have been talking, and I said, it's actually harder now at 3 months than it was at 3 days.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, that's pretty normal. In fact, he keeps telling me I'm normal. And I keep telling him, well, it'd be the first time in my life. And I don't appreciate being normal right now. So I'd rather be. But yeah, you're right. You do have to kind of just, I don't know. I just keep getting up in the morning and saying, Bruce would want me to go on.
Yeah.
He would
not just go on. He would want you to use this material to even find another level of happiness.
Exactly. Yeah, he would. And so
bring meaning, a deep meaning.
So I just have to keep reminding myself. And then I just recognize it takes time. But you captured that so beautifully with Claire. And I could feel, and maybe it's partially because I know where I am and then the feelings were so easy, but it was just like, wow. And I had to set the book down. I would set it down and I'd think, okay. Claire's okay. I'm going to be okay. Okay. But you did a really good job with that. So, bravo to that.
But like you and like me with my sister, you don't have, no matter how someone dies, this trauma, there's something particularly horrible having to watch the person you love go through cancer. So
Absolutely.
you have the trauma. I mean, and in the aftermath, there's just so much relief at the end of that suffering. And I don't want to bring the audience down, that almost the work of the grieving of the loss of the person doesn't kick in until later.
And so maybe that's what it is too. And I do know that the idea of, the relief is also horrifying.
Yeah.
Because it makes you feel like, well, I'm not really relieved. Like, I'm not relieved. I'd rather he be here. On the other hand, I'm relieved that he's not suffering anymore. On the other hand, and it's a weird tightrope to be walking.
Yeah. And I with my sister, she really wanted to believe she could be dead. And I would say to our kids, the prognosis, there's the thing in medicine now with the nocebo effect.
Yeah.
Where if you tell someone, it almost goes back to, profound belief systems and voodoo, that if you put a curse, if you tell someone it's going to happen, they kind of, right. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
So I knew how sick she was. I wasn't denying reality, but I had this thing, it's like, we will take one day at a time, right? Yeah. We won't get ahead of it. But then afterwards, I started to think, oh my goodness, did I give her false hope? Or then you sort of second guess yourself.
Oh, so I know, all the second guessing. It's
second guessing, and what could I have done? And I should have done more. And why didn't I know about this? But the in Greece and Italy, you see the widows wearing the weeds, the black. They had a much more ceremony and respect for grief. I think they said that a true grieving cycle lasts 7 years.
Wow.
And not all of the same intensity, but
no, of course not. But the fullness of it. Yeah.
And we do ourselves a disservice in the West to want to hurry ourselves up out of it.
Quote unquote, get over it. Yeah.
And when you talk to people, I mean, I was so sad, but you feel like, they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear, your sad story. Right. But it's important, I think, to go. The other thing that we do is we numb ourselves out, and all of these feelings of being human and, birth and death and aging. And there's a great book years ago by a woman called Judith Viorst who wrote a book called Necessary Losses. And it's this idea of every season of your life brings new, if you look at it the right way, wonderful new things, but it also,
you lose things to get new things.
You lose things. Well, it evolves. It's an evolution.
Right.
And if you cut yourself off from that evolution and you really don't, I agree with staying busy. My niece just lost her dad, the ex-husband of my sister. And I said, don't do it all in one. Travel, go around, distract yourself, be with friends, because that grief hits you. And I think you got to metabolize it a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
But you also have to go fully, I think, through meditation. You got to go through that full human experience to be really, to see it as much as a gift as it is a curse.
Yeah.
Because it's the foundation of your new being.
Exactly. And I've been telling people, I said, grief now of the loss of my husband will always be a piece of me. Yeah. I said, the problem is right now that piece doesn't know where it fits. It's
That's
like
what Claire says in the
it's like I'm a puzzle and there's this piece and it needs to be part and it doesn't know where it fits. And so it just hurts right now and it just feels uncomfortable and it does, but eventually it's going to find its place.
Yeah.
And that just becomes part of my human experience and who I am and what I become from that point. And it's, the difficulty is helping it find its space within all your other spaces. So
that is a beautiful way of putting it. And Claire has a lot of that in her. There's a part where her friend says that, in the beginning, like every minute is agony. And then, her friend says that eventually nostalgia is remembering without pain.
Yes.
And that's when that piece is sewn into you.
It has its space and then you don't have it. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I was just going to ask you, I think too, some people don't want to talk about their loss and some people do, but I think all of us want for others to acknowledge that journey of finding that painful journey of where does this piece get woven or stitched into the fabric of my new life go. I think skillfully being able to, I know they use that term, hold space, but
Yeah.
really being able to accommodate somebody in that and take cues from them. And if they want to talk about that person, let them talk about the
Let
person.
them talk. Absolutely. And some people don't.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I was at church the other day, and there is a woman that's my age, and her mother. Her mother lost her husband almost 10 years ago, and her daughter started telling me a story about Bruce, and her mother said, "Oh, don't do that to her. I hate it when you bring up stories." And she doesn't like it. And I looked at her and said, "No, no, please tell it to me."
Yeah.
Because I love hearing stories, particularly of when he's happy and healthy and vibrant and all the things that attracted him to me in the first place. And so it was like, no, 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 tell me the stories, because, I would rather remember that. I'd rather have that as something that I'm holding on to, as opposed to, cancer, and it's not pretty. And the end of cancer is just really not pretty.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a great day to conclude this. My sister was so hilarious. She was so funny. And I get on the phone with her kids, and we literally just recount the bits that she used to do. That she was like a comedy routine. And, you just, for so long after cancer illness, you just have those horrible images. But eventually over time, thankfully, they get pushed aside by what you're talking about. The funny
the good stuff. Yeah. The healthy stuff. And that's what I try to remember. Yeah. Let's look at Claire for a minute. She's a great protagonist. She's got a lot of depth. She's looking for a connection with her husband, but she's also looking to move on. Move on is the wrong word, but move forward, right? Yeah. And I'm just curious, is she someone you know? Did you pattern her off of someone, or is she like a complete figment of your imagination? Where did this character come from?
Well, I'd say that psychology and spirituality have been sort of my avocation. So I've just read so much about the human cycles of the heart and how we process things, and my own grief and my own, as a woman, you sort of, there's the every woman in all of us,
right?
So I just sort of just pieced it together from a lot of my understanding. And, Richard Markson I'm not giving anything away because it's right at the beginning of the book, but she would be hiding out in her apartment if she hadn't done this amazing painting.
Right.
That is and this agent takes it down, and she becomes this reluctant cause célèbre. And it's not that she's looking for love. She's sort of holding up with her grief, but people and romance comes into her life, and which is another conundrum, because she's busy grieving, and then this new character comes into her life that she has this reluctant attraction for, and she's trying to ride those two horses. I thought
and it's like, what am I supposed to do with all of this, right? Because the idea of am I just giving up on a love that I had?
Yeah,
that meant so much to me. Am I giving up on that to take something new? It was like I said, it was I loved it because the depth was really there. And I feel like you really captured what someone would go through dealing with all of this. Where did you come up with the idea of like 3 miraculous paintings that had to be brought together in order to let people understand, what, I don't know, like the new spirituality for this time period? Like, where did that concept come from? I love it. It was so different.
Because I'm a fantasist who sees the state of the world and the pain and the suffering, and wishes that I could wave a magic wand and something immediate would happen.
Right.
And it would all change. So it's magical thinking. Yeah. And the idea is that when these 3 paintings come together into a visual gospel, that you'll, instead of having to read them, and there's a whole history of, as you know, in the book, of before people could read, before the advent of the printing press, they understood the stories of Jesus and his church from the beautiful paintings, Renaissance, primarily paintings in church. Right. That's where the veneration came. That's why the reformers began to feel it was idolatrous, because you got people like bowing down to statues and paintings, and the reformers wanted to strip away that visual splendor, and they wanted people to read the Bible, which of course became possible after the printing press. And of course, the Bible is a great source of truth and spiritual meaning, but it is abstract in the sense that it's written language and it has to be translated, and you have to understand the meaning and argue the meaning. Whereas if you look at a great work of art, it's soul opening.
It speaks to you, and it can speak to you personally.
Yeah, when you see a beautiful sunset, you don't have to interpret it or wonder what it's telling you.
Right.
You feel the magnificence of creation. It's transcendent. I think in this time, people don't like the dogma of spirituality or religion, but they crave the transcendence, that higher summum bonum, that higher good, that belief that there's something so loving and healing and amazing in the universe that is directing traffic. So no matter how cynical you are, and people come to it in different ways, they find it through nature, they find it through animals, they find it. But that's the point of the book, that people crave that. And I liked this idea of a visual gospel being immediate. And I like the idea of it literally changing somebody's, but looking at it and being transformed by it. So it's
and we see that very early in the book, people looking at the painting and feeling as though they're being healed.
Yeah.
And not necessarily healed from a disease as much as just healed from the pain of life. That it was fascinating.
We have these moments sometimes around Christmas, or we have these unity moments like after 9/11 where something, on a wide scale, we're all taken by the same sort of understanding at the same time. And it just brings out a lot more empathy and compassion and unity.
Absolutely.
It's those brotherhood of man moments. And, there's a monk in the book who says, because Claire's very skeptical, she just doesn't go along with it. She's just constantly, but she's confused. She's just constantly interrogating people. And she says, well, what is this visual gospel supposed to do? And he says, well, there's a lot of different religious perspectives in it. It's not just Christianity. Like they're vying with each other for her attention.
Exactly.
But the Benedictine monk says, well, Jesus left us with 2 commandments, to love God and love one another, which seems pretty simple on the face, but has so far proved to be impossible. Because if we loved God and we love one another, we'd live in a paradise.
Our world would be entirely different than it is right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So his hope is that the paintings, when assembled, will affect that change. It will give us the ability instantly to love God and love one another. And from that, good things
the world will change.
The world will change, yeah. But it's a fantasy. I mean, isn't
it a beautiful one?
Yeah. And I think we need beautiful fantasies. We need this kind of, John Lennon's Imagine has been sort of, a lot of people see it as a sort of naive, peacenik, utopian, but there, that idea that you can get to a place where the conflict and the strife goes away because we've got this like brotherhood of man.
Absolutely. What's next for you, Penelope? What are you working on?
Well, I did sort of a tropey romance called Polly Wants a Lover, because researching Angel Scroll was so it was like my magnum opus, at least from my small perspective. So I wrote a romance called Polly Wants a Lover, and it's just a classic trope-driven, fast romance. And I actually had the idea of doing a series of women who want. So Polly Wants a Lover, the things that women want and how they get themselves into a pickle trying to get them.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So the bottom line on that was I just sort of needed to, after, COVID was intense for everyone. I had a lot of loss, getting the book out and everything. Oh, and I was invited to, there were people interested in turning the Angel Scroll into a movie. So I worked with Mary Medeiros, who's an Emmy-winning director, and we wrote the movie script.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah. So it's very difficult, to break in. So we wrote the script and Dia's kind of shopping it around. And I think I started life in college as a playwright. So I always think in terms of plays and movies. The book is very sort of, I don't know if you noticed, but it's very scene driven. It kind of unfolds like a movie. So that was always my hope. And but we'll see. It was fun to do that though, to write the book and then to turn around and work with someone and turn it into a script.
Absolutely. Well, hey guys, if you want to continue this conversation, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. Look for my post and tell me something you liked or learned during this great conversation, and you'll have an opportunity to win a digital copy of The Angel Scroll. So, Penelope, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, talk with you about your writing, your style, your mysticism, any of those things, how do they do that? How do they get up with you?
They can go to penelopeholt.com and they can email me there, pholt@penelopeholt.com. And answer questions. I love to hear feedback, preferably good, but please everyone. And like I was saying to you before we started, that I really love to join virtual book clubs. So if anyone wants to read the book and then have a rap session with me, I really do enjoy that. And that is one good thing that Zoom has enabled.
Absolutely. I have done a few of those virtual book clubs, and it is a lot of fun. There's something just really enjoyable about being together with readers who've read the book and now want to have a good discussion about it. And having Penelope come join you would be absolutely perfect. So, hey guys, run right out, grab the book, The Angel Scroll. It's fabulous. And Penelope, I want to thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. And good luck on your journey, Terry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.